What's the most likely outcome for the Arizona Cardinals by the end of the 2024 season? And I revisit Daniel Jones with a guest this time. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm going to do a little bit more future pacing today. Got a guest joining me. And just kind of see where the Cardinals are at through 12 weeks. What's the most level-headed outcome for the season this season? Is it a blip or is it a trend? I'm going to ask my guest that I discussed on Monday, and Daniel Jones. I got to talk about it. We got to get it done until he signs with the team. I just want to get this unfortunate-looking soul who joins me today, Bo Brack, former co-host of mine, now with the great entity that is PHNX Cardinals.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me.
It's always great to hear you say former co-host. It's so nice. It's music to my ears.
No longer ball and chained. It's a fantastic
right.
feeling to have.
Alex, it's great to join you in the room that your parents couldn't quickly enough get all your stuff out of, all your 9th and 10th place trophies, and put up that other stuff to decorate it.
A fold-out couch right here that you can't see. Got not enough pillows. My neck is a mess, but anything for family around Thanksgiving. So, but Cardinals lose in Seattle. Kind of an ugly game. Defense plays well. The offense doesn't. Unfortunate pick six backbreaker by Kyler Murray. But this year, by all accounts, with what was expected for the most part and where we're at now, has been a success. I think that's fair to say so far. I mean, they could fall off a proverbial cliff like we've seen in the past, but I feel like the infrastructure is set in place to where that's more than likely not going to happen than happen. I mean, do you feel that to be true through 12 weeks?
Yeah, I think this coaching staff has given you the confidence that they have the ability to bounce back, that this team, this staff wouldn't cower after a bad performance. And that's exactly what Seattle was. It was a brutal performance. And they've shown, even in even poorer performances throughout this season, that they will stick to the process. They'll get back to the drawing board and hopefully have a better, more productive, game the following week. And that's what they're going to need on the road against the 9-2 Vikings team. So, Jonathan Gannon said it perfectly yesterday, Alex, where he said, like, when the reason for the season is to be thankful that the Cardinals are playing meaningful football when the calendar turns December in week 13 against the Vikings and they're on forward. No matter what happens, they're going to remain in the thick of things, and you're going to watch meaningful football for the remainder of the season, which is great. That's what you want to sign up for as a fan. Did you want an easier path to the NFC West? Absolutely. Did Sunday's performance stop that from happening? Absolutely. But the Cardinals still have a lot to play for.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the entities that have been relied upon are ones that have been weaknesses in the past. The offensive line has been elite this year, by all accounts. They had kind of a backslide this past week, and the Cardinals secondary, with or without Jalen Thompson, is becoming a strength with Garrett Williams and Budda Baker leading the charge. Do you think the young guys in the secondary specifically can be trusted as a set and forget for the rest of the year? Or is Max Melton more of a, not Marco Wilson liability, but around Sean Murphy Bunting level liability?
No, I don't think he's proven to be a liability really at all. I mean, the biggest liability is the veteran signing that you made this offseason in Sean Murphy Bunting. And Max Melton, no matter what his snap count is, especially on the defensive side of the football, I think there's a lot of confidence that he can play whatever role it is that they give him. I think you like what you've seen from Rabbit taylor-demerson. The thing that I like about Max Melton is playing gunner on special teams. He's down there with Joey Blount, and you've got two elite gunners that are just, it's like Shaq and Kobe with Blake Gillikin as far as, pinning teams with inside their own 10. Like, that's a huge weapon for them, as much as people want to scoff at that. But, I think that's the key here. Like, when you look for contributions from first-year players, it's not always going to be like on their respective side of the football, offense or defense. Like if they can make an impact in the game, that's good for your team. And I think Melton has the ability to do that. And hopefully up front, they'll get a boost with Darius Robinson potentially returning as early as this week.
Brack PHNX Cardinals joining me here, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What's the most likely outcome? Now, let me preface this by saying, naturally, the first half of the season, schedule-wise, was a murderer's row compared to, on paper, what is the second half. But anything can happen against any NFL team, especially with an ecosystem that's still somewhat as fragile as the Cardinals. What is the most likely outcome for you now through 12 weeks and the Cardinals losing this past weekend?
It's an uneasy. You're going to have to remain confident even when times get tough, but the path remains open for the Cardinals to get themselves to the playoff. Like they could very well lose to a 9-2 Vikings team. Like the Vikings are a good football team, regardless of where you see flaws on their team, especially at the quarterback position. Like their defense is up there. It's a top 10 group. They take the football away, and they're going to take away what the Cardinals want to do and run the football with James Conner. So there's a very realistic scenario where they're going to fall back to 6-6, but the path still remains open, with hopefully an opportunity to go up against and have a better performance against the Seahawks after this week. And then you got some very winnable football games against the Patriots and the Panthers. So that gets you right back where you want to go. But it's going to have to take, put your big boy pants on as a fan base, because you're going to need them. This is not going to be easy stretch any longer. And Alex, when I look at this performance from this past weekend, like it's not so much like I'm down on the Cardinals as much as like I'm kind of scared about the Seahawks defense finding itself like it has the past 2 weeks. Like that they're going to be at State Farm Stadium a week from Sunday, and they've got 2 top 5 players in the draft that are playing like top 5 players in Devin Witherspoon and the game wrecker and Leonard Williams. Like I'm scared that they can repeat that performance against and potentially sweep this Cardinals team. They're going to have to come to play 2 weeks from Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, think of it this way. Like the biggest thing for the Cardinals this year, the reason why the Cardinals have a winning record is because they've scored touchdowns on goal to go. They weren't kicking field goals. The last regime, all they did was kick field goals. It was get into the 5, false start, timeout, kick a field goal. Like we joke, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
They didn't score touchdowns on Sunday, and that's why they lost. Like they definitely could have won that game, saved the Chad Ryland missed field goal at the end of the game with 30 seconds left. The Cardinals didn't score touchdowns. Seattle did, and the one opportunity they had in the pick 6, like that game was so much closer than we thought, and they played tough football on the defensive side of the ball. Like, they had Geno Smith running for his life, 5 sacks and everything like that. So while it was a bad loss numbers wise, I think that they had a valiant effort on the road where, this team wasn't equipped to do something like that and be in games like that, as of late. So you got to take that as
for sure
more than a grain of salt moving forward.
Yeah, no, like I said, I feel like I didn't lose confidence in the Cardinals because of their performance, but I did gain some, I don't know, whatever it would be for the Seahawks. They earned my respect. Like I thought that I think this team coming out of the bye under a first-year head coach in Seattle is not going away, and it's going to be a little bit, especially the 2 games that the Cardinals play against them. They should be dogfights, just like Sunday was. Like like your points as far as it being closer than maybe the final score indicated. Like I agree with that, but at the same time, it's like can't let Seattle come in and win a similar game on in Week 14.
Right. Whenever there's precipitation coming down from the sky, the Cardinals don't play so well. It's happened twice this year in Green Bay and then in Seattle. Is it kind of a blip, or is it a trend that's starting? We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win 100 times your cheese, man. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and it's not just NFL. Like NBA's in full swing. You got NHL if you're a hockey head. Prize Picks has you covered for all of it. And the coolest part is PrizePick puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes in my bank account. It's an absolute game changer. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by our friends at Skylight Frames. So around the holidays, sharing pictures with family members and friends when you're not with them is something that's all the rage now. And if you want to celebrate with and stay connected to people who are far away, you can do that with Skylight Frames. They make it so easy to share pictures. It's super easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email, no account or subscription required, which is nice. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you, even if you're not in the same room as them. And now is a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. Leave a review if you'd like. Brack of PHNX Cardinals, buddy of mine, chopping it up here, talking Cardinals. Green Bay was an embarrassing performance, and it kind of acted as the catalyst to shift direction. The Cardinals went on a run after that. I kind of see the Seattle loss pertaining to the offensive line specifically as what could be a catalyst to make that not happen again this year like it hadn't up until this point. Can we just take 30 seconds here? Do you agree with it? Jonah Williams was not the reason that the entire offensive line cratered, especially in the interior and the left side, by which he wasn't even close. Can we just agree on that?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, I was pro Jonah Williams being reinserted back in the lineup after the layoff since only playing 22 snaps in the season opener. I think that he gives you more upside, and the sooner you get him in there, the sooner he gets his sea legs back. And I think you will see this offensive line get back to maybe even playing at a higher clip than it did. Kelvin Beachum in there. I mean, like, all respect to Grandpa Kelvin Beachum. That's great. Like, I think it's one of the best stories of the season. But Jonah Williams is your starting right tackle. You paid him as such, and it gives you the best shot to protect your number one asset in Kyler Murray. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. People just look at it's just easy, lazy connecting the dots to be like, oh, Jonah Williams got back in the lineup and the offensive line had their worst performance in 2 years. It's got to be on him. You're right. Like that should be pointed out. And that's just it's false. It's a false take.
Yeah. And, talking about the blip or trend that the segment here, like with Green Bay, that was a more embarrassing performance than the Washington game. The Washington game was kind of like, what is going on here? It's like you see a car crash. You don't know why it happened. Like Green Bay, they weren't prepared for Green Bay. They looked outmatched. They looked lethargic. And, again, it spearheaded this kind of pivot. Weather could become, a thing later in the season. But is that something that the Cardinals are Jared Goffing it here, where it's got to be perfect weather or they can't produce? Like, I'm assuming that this is just a blip, but the two times the Cardinals have played in bad weather or close to bad weather, they haven't produced.
Yeah, this season, and like Jonathan Gannon mentioned the Indianapolis practice where it was a torrential downpour, but look, that they didn't look great in the joint practice with the Colts either. And it's strange because I thought that narrative was going to die by the wayside with their performance in Pittsburgh last year, like where they dealt with the elements and they won that game. They won it ugly. They won it handily against the team that was was able to pick up the pieces and fight back for over 500. But the Cardinals, they smacked them that game. And I thought that was going to be more of the same going forward under the JG. But I think that they've proven otherwise. They're going to have to, they've got some work to do on that one. So, they've got a dome game this week. They've got home cooking the week after that. Who knows what Charlotte's going to present for them, mid-December. That's going to be, I think, a telling performance. Like if they, I know Bryce Young and that crew's playing better, but you should wipe the floor with them regardless of what the elements are.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like, speaking specifically about the Seattle game, I didn't really understand why they were so throw heavy early. Like, I know that, you take what the defense gives to you. Obviously, Mike McDonald et al. Were like, they're not beating us on the ground.
Yeah.
And they were one of the worst. I mean, Seattle was one of the worst run defensive teams in the NFL up until that point. But the offense just looked like the weather was affecting them because they couldn't run the ball, it was odd. Especially with the ability to get Trey McBride open in space around the line of scrimmage and let him eat. And same with Marvin Harrison Jr. The convoluted nature of the offense was a little bit more off-putting than anything else, regardless of how much time the offensive line gave to Kyler Murray or not. It looked clunky out of nowhere after it had been humming for a month.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you take away what you want to do, especially establishing the run and getting away from it too quickly, to your point, 7 carries in the first half for whatever they had. It was very poor performance, and then really didn't get it emphasized in the second half either. I think it's really going to make you look clunky. And, Drew Petzing talked about that on Tuesday, having to make the pivot, like in his, like, sometimes you can pivot from being a pass heavy team because the run's not there, but sometimes defenses, or sometimes it's just not there ever, or it's both of them aren't there. And that's where it really gets tough. And I think that's the situation that they were dealing with on Sunday. Was it Jason Moore, the fantasy footballers? I thought he had a real bad take on this, though. Like he was crediting, he called Trey McBride Kyler Murray's pacifier. And he said that Trey McBride's, performance over 133 yards in the air on Sunday was a product of Kyler Murray just being bad. And I was like, Kyler Murray wasn't a part of the solution on Sunday, Alex, but like to say he was bad, especially the pressure he was facing and the lack of run game, I think is a little, I don't agree with that.
Jason Moore, friend of the show.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean, like,
friend of the show.
Take factors. I just don't agree with that one.
Fair enough. I mean, and it's odd. Like the antithesis is what I saw with Trey McBride is, what had we been pining for during the last regime? Why can wide receiver ones get open on every other team, and the Arizona Cardinals wide receiver one can't get schemed open? Trey McBride is always open.
Yeah,
like they figured it out to where in space, up the seam, post routes, flag, doesn't matter. He's open. So you throw the ball to the open receiver. They just got to figure out how to do that with Marv, and then they'll be cooking with gas. But I thought that was a strength that he was always open and everybody knew he was getting the ball.
I just think like the Marv thing, give him a little bit of, I know McBride's earned this. He's in his 3rd season. He's got the rapport with Kyler Murray, but not spam him the football, but give him some other opportunities to get involved. I think that you would pay off for this offense very well. Like instead of like, hey, we're not going to force the issue. It's like, no, don't force the issue. You don't have to do it downfield, but get the ball in his hands. Just to give him a layup, give him a free throw, and just see what happens there. But there just seems to be reluctance there. But Trey McBride picking up the slack, it's not a bad thing. I just don't see that as a bad thing. He's a playmaker. He's been their most consistent playmaker for 2 seasons now.
Yeah, and the Marv thing is, you're right. Like, how Seattle gets Jackson Smith and Jigba involved, I would love to see some wide receiver screens with a path, not just throwing it behind the line of scrimmage with 2 blockers in front. Like, get creative with it. Let him see one go in. I've been saying that. I say the same thing with Trey Benson. It's like, get him on the field early, get the juices flowing so you can have a 2-headed monster back there. Obviously, it didn't work very well in Seattle. Is Daniel Jones an option for the Cardinals as a backup quarterback? Okay, I'm going to make a rational point like I always do on this show. Bo's going to disagree with me because he's irrational, and we're going to have a throwback to 2018. That's next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, final segment, Locked on Cardinals. At Clancy's Corner on Twitter, Bo Brock at Bo Brock on Twitter, the 1%er thing is great for you. I'm a huge proponent of first name, last name, even though it's a nickname, first name, last name, no numbers. I have a lot of 1%ers on this show. I don't know what that says about me, but that's a pretty special thing. PHNX Cardinals, he and Johnny V do a great job over there. Damon Dog, you get your shout out to, as the three-headed monster over there. The reason why I bring up Daniel Jones as just something to discuss is because at this point in the season, the Cardinals cannot afford one injury to derail everything. And sure, quarterback, obviously head of the snake, the most important thing. I'm sure that the coaching staff trusts Clayton Tune like they trust his passer before the season started. The latter has worked out with what Nick Rallis has done outside of just the actual traditional edge rushers. I don't see a world where Clayton Tune can just step in and do 45 to 50% of what Kyler Murray does. Daniel Jones could. Not a fan of Daniel Jones. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I think he's an average backup quarterback, and that would be enough if you give him $1 million or whatever it is for the rest of the season. I don't see a downside, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, there's very well you sign Daniel Jones and he just doesn't see the playing field. That would be the best of all realities, right? And you help him out. He helps you out as far as, maybe running some scout team in practice with, a guy that started NFL games, a lot of them in his NFL career being part of that Kyler Murray draft class, second quarterback off the board. I don't see that much upside with Daniel Jones. I'm not going to poo-poo it to where it's like, don't do it. It's a bad idea. I mean, if he's in what the reports are, he wants to join a team that's vying for the playoffs instead of a bottom dweller, then I like that. I like that I think he's got some good self-awareness there. But at the same time, like, I can't remember if you mentioned it on air or off air, like the Joshua Dobbs. Like I think he is Joshua Dobbs. And we've seen what, Joshua Dobbs, who he is and what he provides. And if that's the ceiling or the floor for Daniel Jones, I don't know. I mean, like, I think that is a uptick over a guy like Clayton Tune. I don't think it brings like the baggage. Like Daniel Jones, like probably would be what some people would consider a distraction for a day. Like he would get to Tempe, you'd have a big scrum around his locker, national media would pick it up, and then it would be nobody would think about it afterwards. So I'm lukewarm on it. There's Shanahan's talking about him. Kevin O'Connell, your next opponent's talking about him. Like, if they want to make a strong play for Daniel Jones, I don't think, the Cardinals need to be, big time, like stand in their way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're not fighting a bidding war over Daniel Jones. It's just like Josh Dobbs, like you could run the triple option with Daniel Jones if Kyler Murray gets hurt. Like, you could run the ball 40 times a game with his offensive line, and Daniel Jones has the ability to run the ball. He's 6'3", 240. Like, he's a big quarterback. He could run the ball. That's what I'm saying is, like, you need 60% from your backup quarterback production-wise if your starting quarterback gets hurt. Daniel Jones has the ability to do that more than Clayton Tune. I think it's just more of just talking about it to do a segment, and then we can move on.
He fits what they want. I mean, he fits. He's tall. He's mobile. He's got a strong enough arm. But at the same time, like, is he the backup of the future here? I mean, if he was, that'd be great. But I mean, I think that Daniel Jones, because this is the first, stop post New York Giants, there's more intrigue that really kind of would put the Cardinals out of this conversation. Like if this was in the offseason, it's like, hey, we're going to bring him in and he's going to be the backup for the foreseeable future. Like, let's say, hey, I think that's a good play. He could be Colt McCoy going forward. That's probably what he's best suited for. But if he's like, I need my next, I'm going to vie for the starting role, it's like, yeah, look elsewhere. I mean, but I'll tell you what, like Sunday, Kyler Murray getting the wind knocked out of him and having to come off the field, like that, the fear of him not being there and what the option is after that, like that remains a very dark, potential reality.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, and I tweeted that on, like, the Cardinals should check in on Daniel Jones immediately after Kyler got the wind knocked out of him. And we didn't know why he went.
I bet you're
you want Daniel Jones to start for the Cardinals? It's like, I did it to myself. I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, this locomotive is going downhill with no brakes and no restrictor plate, And if you have Kyler Murray get hurt, it evaporates. Like, it's not like, oh, they don't have a chance anymore. They don't have much of a chance. It is no more. And when was the last time Kyler Murray played a full season? I'll wait. You hope that that's not going to happen. It's a completely different ecosystem. He's stronger than ever. He's smarter than ever. It's the best offensive line he's ever had, the best coaching staff. They protect him. I get all of it. And they're walking a tightrope with no safety net. And that's kind of terrifying if you think about it whenever he takes a big hit. I mean, he's been great taking hits this year. I mean, the blind side.
He's had 2 and 2 in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Alex, I know a lot of people want to give Kyler crap, and I think that this is one of those things where you can say that this is a fair criticism. Like the Quincy Williams blitz where he lights Kyler up. Like, you love Kyler saying, I liked being hit like that. Yeah. But then the next game, you've got another free hitter. Like, that's pre-snap stuff you got to clean up. Drew Petzing talked about that on Tuesday. Like, that's something that falls on the quarterback and the coordinator. Like, they've got it. They've done a good job in keeping him out of harm's way up until the Jets game. But now they've got the Jets and the Seahawks performance where Kyler Murray's taking a couple free licks, which is not good for somebody his size.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially they've been very lucky that he held onto the ball both times. I mean, and that wasn't on Paris Johnson Jr. either. Like, he was blocking. He was blocking.
It's not his assignment.
Right, exactly. And they have a tight end chipping one of the better pass rushers in the game. Like, you're right. I mean, it's something that isn't ideal. You'd think that was a blip more than a trend also, where they've been so good. Like, people forget how good this offensive line has been elite. Like, Walter Frolt has been elite. He's been a Pro Bowler. Evan Brown, nobody even says nobody said a word about him until this week. Paris Johnson Jr., worst game as a pro, probably. Yeah. I mean, even including last year. He played some of the toughest fronts in football last year as a rookie in a non-traditional position for him, and he was fine. They played terribly against a defense that's ramping, as you mentioned. And I think it's more of an exception to the rule than the rule. But with that said, it just puts into perspective, they need a viable backup unless they think Clayton Tune is it, which they've proved me wrong multiple times this year with the defense. I didn't think this would come on.
I talked to Cardinals coaches before the acquisition of Desmond Ridder, and they're like, we like Clayton too. We think he can be the backup for the next 10 years.
Cool.
But there's still, I think they like his skill set. They like his approach. They like how he's been running scout team and this and that. But there still is, he's going to have to prove you otherwise, because the game film would suggest it would be naive to think hey, that's a viable option if Kyler's not available.
I mean, to be fair, it was like I was playing quarterback against Cleveland last year. He had no shot. There was no shot. So I'm not even holding that against him. It's more, listen, he had the Case Keenum yards, not to the level, but in Houston, they almost made the playoff when he was there as last year. He's played meaningful snaps in big games.
Yeah.
I still see the Giants as the bigger problem than Daniel Jones. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is a great quarterback. I'm not saying he's above average one. That is a dumpster fire. You put Kyler Murray over there. Kyler Murray's not Kyler Murray with the Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt, and I couldn't even name their tight end. Is it still Daniel Bellinger? I have no idea what their tight end is. And their offensive line's off. So that's I don't know. It scared the bejesus out of me when Kyler took that hit. It's when it puts things into perspective. Bo, where can they find you over there at PHNX?
At Bo Brock, at Bob Rack, easiest way to find it. Still on the bird. And then also just wherever you find podcasts, and of course, PHNX Sports on YouTube.
Great sleep aid.
Oh, wow. You're going to get one dig right before
Happy Thanksgiving.
Sleep down.
There's Alex. Bo Brock. The best sleep aids there are around this time. No, they do a great job over there. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, crossover Thursday with Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings tomorrow. Remember, tagline, though, without you, there is no. I'll talk to you.